I'm delighted to welcome to the show today two lovely individuals, one in America and one in the Algarve in Portugal. So welcome Leanne Littlewood and Clayton Thomas.
Thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So Clayton, we can see you're driving. Where are you?
I am in the backwoods of North Carolina today.
Okay, presumably on business.
Of course, and it's beautiful because we're starting to have the autumn season, and the trees are changing color and leaves are starting to fall. It's beautiful.
Marvelous. And other Halloween celebrations getting in full swing with all the pumpkins everywhere.
Well, we're gonna see how that plays out if we're allowed to have Halloween this year because of all of the turmoil here in the U.S. But
okay. Many years ago, I was over there in about this time of year, and I was amazed at the amount of houses that were dressed up in the thousands and thousands of pumpkins that were in front of people's houses with the candles in. It was lovely.
Yeah, I think we've got about 25 or 30 pumpkins at our house.
Okay, cool. Right, so we're here to talk about detoxing, and particularly through a particular product that I believe you've done a lot of research into. So talk to us, Clayton, about detoxing. Why do we need to detox?
I broke up there a little bit.
Okay, so I was just saying why we need to talk about detoxing today. So why do we need to detox, and what's the best way to do it?
Well, the need is really due, you can say, environmental, right? Because the problem is environmental, and it's environmental toxins that are the problem. The biggest thing that, if you don't understand it already, is that we are born into a cesspool, or we are conceived into a cesspool. And one of the key things that was quite intriguing to me about 15 years ago, when the Environmental Working Group published the initial data, that the cord blood of infants, which we had always suspected was supposed to be clean and pure, where the best stem cells are, apparently, because of the development of a fetus. There's over 200 different chemicals, toxins, pollutants, and carcinogens that are in the cord blood of infants. So we know, and it's been very well established, that 30% of just the mercury that's in a mom is pushed into the fetus. So from the day you're conceived, not only is your mother feeding you nutrients so the baby can grow, but we're also getting bathed in a bath of just pollutants and chemicals and toxins. But then once you're born, then the real exposure starts. You have the toxins from breast milk. You've got the air we breathe is tremendously polluted, even though we don't really acknowledge it. The water you drink, the food you eat, the environment we play in, it's all polluted. And 90% of all chronic degenerative diseases, so all the stuff that we become accustomed to with having a traditional diagnosis for, or the majority of the signs of aging, or just part of getting older, are not part of aging. They're part of being polluted. And so if you were to create a foundation for wellness, just like you create a foundation for building a house, the most important thing you can do is remove what's causing the problems, right? Or what is creating your risk. It's not about what you can put into, how you change your diet, everything on what we can remove. And my career around health and wellness spans about 40 years, from growing up in a veterinary practice to studying health and nutrition as a child, and then as but the last 16 years has been focused on detoxification and environmental toxicology and the use of zeolites, and a specific zeolite called clinoptilolite that is very, very unique in how it's created in nature and what it does. And over that time, you spend 15 years doing anything, you're going to figure a few things out. And we've created what's really the culmination of a lot of that work and work of my partners that have much more extensive scientific backgrounds than I have, to create a process that takes this amazing three-dimensional, negatively charged, honeycomb-shaped crystalline structure, and we can clean it out. We break it apart into much smaller fragments that still have this natural capability to trap and bind heavy metals, glyphosate, other environmental toxins, mold spores, viral particles, bacterial fragments, biotoxins, trap them in these little cages and allow them to be passively removed. And that product is called Clean Slate. And it's one thing to hear me talk about it, but I would love to refer to Leanne because of her experience.
Wonderful. And it's hopefully a better reception, because the reception is not wonderful, Clayton. So I hope the listeners are bearing with us on this, but it's such an important topic. I'm really keen to continue. So Leanne, what's your experience then with the Clean Slate, which is the zeolite, can I say it? Clip top, what's it called?
Not particular light, right?
With that.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Elaine?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Great. Well, I'm going to give a quick background into my health journey so far, because that will probably help to understand a bit as well. So I suffered for 10 years with ulcerative colitis and rheumatoid arthritis, and I went down the whole medication route, and although my symptoms were being masked, I was just getting worse and worse. Every time I got back into hospital, it was just for longer amounts of time each time. And then it just got to the point where I thought, something needs to change here. The doctors told me that I was going to have the stoma bag in, that was going to remove part of my colon, and I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't pick my children up because I was so inflamed and so much in pain all the time. So I just decided one day from the next, and everybody's different. I never recommend anybody does what I did. It just felt right to me. I threw all 14 pills. I was taking 14 a day at that time. Threw them all into the bin, and I decided that's it, something's changing. So the first thing I did was I went on a juicing diet. I had water for a week and then juice for a week. And then I just started playing around with raw foods. And that at the time really helped me. And at the time I was really in the mindset as that the root cause was inflammation. So all I was attacking the inflammation, and I got so much better. But along my journey, it kind of plateaued. And although I felt really, really well, I knew that I could get deeper into the healing. And that's when I was introduced to the world of daily detoxing. And I then realized, I became aware that there is also a root cause of inflammation. So although we're taught so much that inflammation is the root cause, we never really think, so what causes the inflammation? And that's when obviously I started delving into the world of all the toxicity that we're pounded with, all the heavy metals. And then I did a test and realized that even though I thought I was well and nothing else could be different, I was still full of heavy metals. So that's when I started taking this product. And over the last 6 months, my healing has just leapt. I mean, I feel like a completely different person. And I already said this up from my journey anyway. And I'm like, wow, now I'm even more. I just feel clearer. I feel bigger. I feel more connected. But the two things that have really stood out for me, and I was reading a book by Medical Medium, and he talks about how the heavy metals cause those little spots in your vision. And I had a lot of those. And I was reading the book, I was like, I haven't got those anymore. So I spent like a week getting up really early, squinting my eyes, trying to see if I really had these spots or not. And they have completely gone. I haven't got one little blur in my vision anymore. And another big thing for me is as long as I can remember, I've had really bad bleeding gums. And again, I didn't realize it's happening because I was so used to just brushing my teeth and having all this blood in my mouth that for the last 3 months, I've had no bleeding gums either. I even bought a harder brush just to make sure, and they're not bleeding. So that's amazing for me as well. I feel so much more energy. I'm giving the drops to my children as well, and I'm noticing that they're a lot calmer. They're not arguing as much. So if they do argue, I can just drop a few more in.
How old are your children, Leanne?
They are 2, 6, 8 on Sunday, and 10.
Wow, and they're all on the drops as well as you.
Yes, they are. And my mum has had some amazing results as well. She's been a very heavy espresso coffee drinker and smoker for a long, long time. And she started noticing about 2 months into taking the clean slate that she just didn't like the taste of the coffee anymore. So she's now cut out the espresso drinking completely. And she's gone from smoking about 15 cigarettes a day to smoking about 4 or 5. And she thinks she says that it's now the habit. She just has to break the habit. And she says she's just not enjoying it anymore. So I think obviously getting all the toxins out of the body is making the body react and respond differently as well, which is really...
Absolutely. It's incredible how few people realise the toxicity that we carry with us day to day. I offer dry blood analysis for my clients now, and it's incredible, you know, to see within their blood. And when they see the picture, this is a lot of the problem I find. There's so many good products out there, but people don't realise until they see a picture or experience some kind of, you know, radical remission or whatever it is, they don't realise how poisoned their body is. So Clayton, you mentioned, you rattled off all these wonderful benefits that it clears the pollutions, the heavy metals, etc. Does it also do, does it deal with parasites as well?
Well, it's a really good question, right? Because I was actually making some comments about this morning, because there's so many conversations about parasites and viruses now, and you can throw fungus and bacteria in all of those. And there's one thing that is the most phenomenal anti-parasitic, antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial component that we make. And it's our immune system. So the key is not to look at and creating an environment which is a healthy environment that those things can't live in. And parasites feed on heavy metals and environmental toxins, and they can only survive in a toxic environment that is created by those toxins. So if you're able to systemically and passively remove those toxins, your body itself is going to flush out a lot of those parasites on its own, because that's what we're made to do. We're not supposed to be a parasite factory. We're not made to be that way. But only through being polluted does that happen. So you don't have to look at taking a specific protocol per se to address parasites. You just need to clean up the mess. And it's a lot like inflammation. You hear so many people promote, oh, inflammation is the cause of the problems. No, it's not. Inflammation is just another symptom. So whether it's inflammation, if it's parasites, if it's viral issues, if you clean up your body's going to take care of the rest. Right? Because we will always work to find balance. We will always work to find homeostasis. And we are made to be vital and energetic and glowing. Like when you look at Leanne on camera now, you go, okay, there's a big bundle of light there. That's what we're made to be. You just have to start cleaning stuff up cellularly. And that's really the crucial difference, is true systemic detoxification is not just GI, kidney, liver. It's head to toes and everything in between.
So does the clean slate go across the blood-brain barrier, or is it just for the body?
It's a really good question. So because you get into a drug delivery conversation when we talk about crossing the blood-brain barrier. But here's what we've seen, and there's some testing that we can do to prove and validate permeability across the blood-brain barrier, we're a little bit reluctant to do so because it's going to change the conversation from nutraceutical to pharmaceutical. But many of the fragments that are created, they're water soluble, or they move within water. They're not really soluble in water because they're just really small. They don't dissolve. But they are small enough to permeate cellular membranes, and the blood-brain barrier would be one of those. And what we can say is the outcomes that we're seeing are providing enough evidence that it's likely that that is happening. But we're not going to come out and say, here, we have scientific evidence that this is crossing the blood-brain barrier right now, because it's a conversation that we're not ready to have yet.
Okay, so in theory, the theory and the evidence that you're seeing thus far may suggest, obviously being careful about wording here, may suggest that those with dementia and other similar conditions may benefit in some way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes, and this is the important part, when it comes to the symptoms and it comes to the diagnosis, we've seen and we know that those issues aren't the problem. Mercury, aluminum, and lead are neurotoxic. And if you can remove those and you can clean up that environment, things change. We see a lot of that. And it's one of two scenarios. The first one is these fragments are crossing that barrier and they are grabbing onto what they can, and then they're leaving. The second scenario is they go right up to the barrier and they're drawing like a magnet, like a rare earth magnet would draw other metals out of soil or out of solution, that it's pulling those metals back across the blood-brain barrier where it can trap them and remove them. Because of the cognitive function and some of those issues that you talked about, the dementia, the Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's, the MS, these not only neurological but also neurological and psychological, that you see changes. And it's not due to what we're treating, it's only due to what we're removing, because if you remove the cause, the symptoms can't exist and the body's going to find balance.
So you this name that I can't say, Leanne, help me out. What's it? something.
Clinoptilolite.
Clinoptilolite. I'm going to have to practice there. Clinoptilolite. So I understand that there is an enormous range of these zeolites. So how did you come across this particular one? You mentioned 15 years of research, Clayton, but what was it that's so special about this particular one?
Well, zeolites are a class of volcanic clays and minerals and crystals like quartz. I mean, most of us are familiar with quartz, right?
Yes.
And we know quartz is really unique in its ability to balance energy and how it resonates with us, whether it's rose quartz or different types of quartz. Well, quartz is a zeolite. It's in the same class. And you have bentonite, chabazite, heulandite, morganite, quartz, clinoptilolite. And of this class of minerals, clinoptilolite has features that are the most unique. And many people are familiar with like bentonite clay because it's, you can make mud. You do great for facials. It's great for gastrointestinal benefits. Clinoptilolite is, when you look at the published literature, is one that it's kind of the most powerful of the group. And what some of the most recent published clinical studies done in Ukraine have shown is this powder, this crystal, has been used for millennia. The Romans used to line the aqueducts with it. When Chernobyl melted down, 500,000 tons of clinoptilolite powder were dropped over the reactor site to bind radioactive cesium and strontium. And they were making cookies with clinoptilolite powder in them to feed to women and children to work to bind some of the radioactive isotopes that they were exposed to. So you can look at a lot of the published data, and you can see that scientifically this crystal is very, very unique, and it is the most powerful of the group. And when I was first introduced to this concept 16 years ago, it was the first product that really came to the market. It was a suspension of clinoptilolite, a much larger powder fragments in water. But we've taken those philosophies and using a biotech philosophy, because my wife is a nanobiotechnologist, and with her postdoc on Biogen, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, UCB, GHD, and an EDD. So she's really smart. And those minds and this process has brought us to a point where we've been able to do better than we've ever done before, never seen before, in processing this crystal into a solution that is bioavailable and small enough to work throughout the body versus just working in the gut.
So I'm guessing the fact that it comes in drop form makes it more bioavailable compared to other products which are in powder form, say.
Correct. Yeah, because you look at the fragment size. If you take a powder, you can see how big the particles are. It's like sand, right? You can take a rock that might be this big, and you take a pebble that's this big, and then you take sand, you can still run it in your fingers and you can still feel it. Whereas these fragments are nano and micro sized. So they're really small. So if you look at it from a cage standpoint, we dramatically increase the amount of surface area of binding capability and open up some other unique aspects of the crystal that we'll probably discuss later, like silicic acid and orthosilicic acid, which is providing more silica, which is a primary building block for tissue and our body, that it's exchanging that.
So is this something that people should be considering to be doing every day, or once you've detoxed you're okay? What's your recommendation?
Well, usually I'd say for the first few years it's something you'll do every day, and then over time you might be able to adjust how you use it, because the argument is, can you clean up the entire mess? Right? Can you effectively remove all the toxins from your body over time? And if you make the argument that theoretically that is possible, and you're able to do that, and we'll say it takes a couple of years to do so, after that point, you still have your exposure daily. The air you breathe, the food you're eating, the water you're drinking. It doesn't matter if you try to eat organic or you drink the best water. The air you're breathing, the soil that foods are grown in are still toxic. So if you do clean out your entire system, then you're going to want to make sure that you're continually doing something to offset your daily exposure. And over time, you might not need to do that every day. It might be every other day, or you might be able to decrease the amount of clean slate that you're using to get the same benefit once you clean stuff out. But that's one thing that everybody can figure out on their own, because we're all biologically unique, and our environmental exposure is different for every person based on where we live, what our diet is, what our lifestyle is. So you can adjust accordingly. So how would a person know whether they're clean or they're not? I mean, obviously there's I guess there's a whole range of different symptoms, but medics would put that down to this condition or that condition. They'd give it a name, wouldn't they? Like Leanne had rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, etc. How would an ordinary person know whether they're kind of full of toxins or whether they're clean? Well, you know what? I'm going to defer to Leanne, because from the outside she looks healthy, right? But if you talk to each person and you ask them, You know, how do you feel? Everybody will tell you, oh, I have this issue, I've got this thing. And if they dive into it, they all have little bits of symptoms, but they just think that they're normal. But Leanne, what does well feel like compared to what you used to feel like? And is there a difference? And during this process, because you're not even close to being done yet, have you seen changes that you know things are changing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that the biggest changes right now for me is feeling happier. Definitely the happiness, the more joy. I think when I was ill, I seemed to have this big dark cloud over me. So when I was at that space in time, I knew that there was a big dark cloud inside me as well. I think from my own perspective and feelings, I think you just feel it. And like I said before, I thought that I was done healing. I thought that I was there until I realized that there was a next step, a next level. And now even 6 months on, I'm just I feel so much lighter. I feel so much more clarity. I feel so much more focus. And I think it's definitely the feeling. And like you said, I've still got a long way to go, because when you think you're well and when you take that wellness one more step, you just realize that I think it's a journey. We're never going to be done because the world's just so toxic around us. And this is something that there's no way ever that I'm going to stop detoxing now, because I felt what it feels like to be removing these things. And I'm seeing what it's doing to my mom. I'm seeing what it's doing to my children. And I really, really do think that we should be teaching people to start doing this to the children now. Definitely, definitely.
Clayton may not know this, but I interviewed you 2.5 years ago, didn't I, Leanne? And I think I'm going to dig out to see if I can find a picture. I can't remember if we did it on video. Well, we did do it on video, but I don't remember if I actually published a video or if it was on a podcast, because it was when I was running my radio show. But the difference, I keep on kind of doing a step back, because the difference in you then, 2.5 years, I mean, it's just incredible. You are double the person you were then. So yeah, it's amazing to see you glowing.
And at that point in time, I remember speaking to you, and I thought I was healed then. I was like, yes, it's all gone.
And that's why the interview took place, because you wanted to share your story of how much better you were compared to previously.
And now 2 years on, it's a complete different person again.
Yeah, absolutely. So what other conditions have you seen with people that you've introduced Clean State to, Leanne? What other conditions, what other stories have you got to share?
I've had people that have been suffering again, very, arthritic pain, very swollen knees, that have noticed that the actual inflammation has gone down really quickly. People that have suffered for a long time with IBS, with bloating. I've had 3, 4, 5 people now saying to me that they just feel like overnight there's been a pin stuck in the belly and it's just deflated, like the balloon's gone down. So that's obviously inflammation in the gut as well, that it's just helping. One of the really amazing testimonials that I had was from a friend of mine, and she has an autistic boy who's 14, 15 years old. And so I'd heard about this, being able to help people, heavy metals, having this big connection. So she said, right, I'm willing to try anything natural with him. So he started taking 2-3 drops a day. It wasn't a lot. And she noticed quite quickly that his whole behavior was changing. He started turning the radio onto his favorite song, which is something that he'd never done before. She says that now he goes and he makes his own toast, which is again something that he'd never done before. So she's noticed him a lot more interactive. And I mean, that for me was the best testimonial to date, just because of how happy she was. And he's a really, really happy boy anyway. I mean, when I met him, he's just such an amazing soul. And so just to see that he's stepping even further into that healing now is just, it's so good.
Heartwarming, isn't it?
It really is.
Clayton, what's the next step with this? I mean, are you happy with the formula now? Are you just is the lid on now?
Well, it's a really interesting question, and I think when you're a creator, and this is not just me, but you listen to your community, and we we've preached and taught about the importance of trace mineral supplementation, because heavy metals will block binding sites for trace minerals. They're also hormone mimetic, which is probably a whole other conversation that we can get into about hormones in women and men. But the key addition to using Clean Slate has been adding trace minerals. And I'm a huge advocate for the use of Himalayan sea salt, just to add more Himalayan sea salt into your diet. But many people don't have access or the knowledge to do that. So we've been playing with the formula, and we'd been discussing for the last couple of years, prior to launching Root, but of creating a trace minerals supplement. But the cost of production, which is minimal, versus the price that we would be charging for the community for a trace mineral supplement, we didn't feel was justifiable, right? Because you want to be able to provide value. So we just added it to the product. So in here very shortly, the production run, I just approved the production samples yesterday. And probably starting in November, I'll say November, December, the flavor and taste of Clean Slate is going to change a little bit because we've added trace minerals to it. So the cages of the zeolite will actually help deliver the trace minerals, and they will exchange the trace minerals for the heavy metals. And I think we already see amazing results. I think this is going to kick things up a notch.
So you've mentioned Himalayan sea salt. What other trace minerals would be in there?
Well, so you've got the calciums, the magnesiums, the potassiums, the sodiums, along with some of the other smaller trace minerals, selenium, chromium, a lot of those. See, but you don't need massive amounts of those. That's why they're called trace, right? You just need small amounts, and energetically, the body knows how to use those, and the body can assimilate and create more of them once you give them some of it, which is the unique aspect that we're finding energetically and how the body can function. But then also Zero In is the sibling to Clean Slate, which works from a neurotransmission standpoint to allow your gut to begin producing dopamine and serotonin as it needs. And then we have a few additional products in the pipeline that we will introduce over time as well.
So you just slipped in there, Zero. So Zero is another product for you.
Correct. Zero In is we call it the little golden capsules of happiness, because like Leanne had mentioned, if you ask people what they want, what their desires are, 2 of the 3 things that they'll tell you is, I want to be healthy and happy. Well, the healthiness comes from removing the toxins and getting all the bad stuff out. The happiness comes from dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters that are produced, that our body produces to help you feel good, relax, have better focus, better mental clarity, be able to sleep better. Because you hear so many people talk about melatonin and melatonin supplementation because they don't sleep well. Well, they don't sleep well because your pineal gland, which is the light center of the brain, which is where melatonin and valetonin are produced, that are calcified by fluoride. Why fluoride is in the water, you got me, I'm not a Nazi. But Clean Slate can decalcify the pineal gland, and Zero In allows the gut to produce dopamine and serotonin. So during the day, you get a little more dopamine, but at night, your body will produce more serotonin. The serotonin converts to melatonin and valetonin in the pineal gland. And, well, you get to sleep better than you probably ever imagined. All from a simple process, right? Wow. So that's the approach. And Leanne can testify to that too.
So are you your family on that as well, Leanne? The zero in?
Yes. In the beginning, when I was introduced to the product, I was seeing how people just got this big buzz. So I was a bit skeptical to try it at first, because I was like, I'm still breastfeeding. What if I get this like crazy baby that goes all hyperactive? But I started to try them slowly, and I just realized that I got more of the happy feel. I was laughing for no reason, but I also got a lot more calm, a lot more clarity and focus. And I'm the kind of person that really lacks focus. Before I'd like do 20, 30 things at once and just not be able to focus. And I'm finding that things are just coming together more easily now. I'm able to say, right, I'm doing this, I'm focusing on this. My meditations are being gone to another level as well. And sleep, 100% I'm sleeping better. Even though my little one still wakes me up during the night for feeding, I'm going off and sleeping straight after again. So I'm sleeping so much better. And this is another thing that I'm getting from a lot of people as well, is that they're sleeping just so much better, so much easier, and feeling more awake, waking up earlier, but feeling like they've really slept, which is so important.
Brilliant. Well, thank you guys so much for spending time today, and appreciate, Clayton, that you're not in an ideal situation for this conversation, but thank you so much, and thank your driver, it wasn't too wobbly.
Thanks for having me. It's great. Hopefully we can do this again and I'll be in a better environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything either of you want to mention before we say goodbye?
I'll leave it to Leanne, but I will challenge everybody that's listening here. Try this stuff. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Leanne. But if you're one that wants to function better, you want to feel better, and even if you think you're already well, it's the funny part, because we focus a lot on the people that don't feel well or don't function well. But if you don't have, quote, problems, if you're well, you're always looking for that edge. You want to perform better. Try this stuff. It is amazing. That's my challenge.
Cool. Okay, last word from you, Leanne.
Yeah, I can only say the same. Absolutely try it, because I was at that space where I thought I was well, like we spoke about, and I tried this thinking I wanted to be able to say to my friend that introduced me, told you I was well enough and this wasn't going to do anything. And I'm so glad she introduced me to it, because I'm just feeling another level. So it definitely takes your healing. When you're clearing things out and not just focusing on the inflammation, it just takes your well-being to another level, for absolute sure.
Brilliant, and certainly something I've tried it. I've been using it for a while, and I'm very happy with Clean State for sure. And my sleep's improved, and my floaters as well. I take live organic wheatgrass every day, and that cleared my floaters. And then I didn't have the product for a little while, but in the meantime I was using the Clean Slate, and they're gone again. So it's amazing, isn't it? As you said earlier on, Clayton, you give your body the right environment and it fixes itself, doesn't it? Simple. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you just give the body the ability to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. Very simple. But so many people try and overcomplicate things, don't they, as well?
Yeah, it took me 3-4 years to realize that I was just throwing so much at my body, and I wasn't actually cleaning out what was causing the problems in the first place. Like, I could have been where I am right now 2 years ago when I spoke to you, and I was all hyped then, going, yeah, I've done it.
Yeah.
But again, I tried so much different stuff, and it was just masking the inflammation. And now that I've actually learned about how to get to the root cause of everything, I think I'm just helping people now, because I can help them start the journey earlier and clean out, and just, like you said, make it so much more simple.
And Clayton mentioned value earlier on as well. So many people spend an absolute fortune on supplements because they think they should be taking them because they've read something or somebody's told them something, and you end up being bombarded, overwhelmed, and broke. So this way, I think you've landed on something that's really amazing. Just cut everything out, do your detoxing with this with a Clean Slate, and Clean Slate or Clean State?
Clean slate.
Clean slate, that's it, clean slate. And healthy and happy. Marvellous.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much, guys. We will have a talk another time, because I can see, or we'll read between the lines, Clayton will be, Clayton's wife in particular, by the sounds of things, the Bright Bunny will be helping to push some more wonderful innovations along. And Clayton, I think we've lost you on the call here. I think you've already gone on your journey. You've taken a fork road somewhere. Anyway, yeah, there he's gone. Okay, well, thank you very much, Leanne, and let's keep in touch. And this will go out on a podcast quite soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much.